summer doldrums and a splash of color. The buzzing fluorescent fixtures of Maxwell's Market, a brand name that mocked Leo's evaporating drive, cast a sickly pall over everything. Another scan, another peach can, the barcode a blur of routine. Oakhaven's summer air hung heavy, a dense fog of ennui broken only by the scanner's chirp and the ceaseless drone of Mrs. Henderson's tomato grievances. He was trapped, a revolving component in a machine going nowhere. He checked the clock. Still 3 hours to go. 3 more hours of recycled air and phony cheer. 3 more hours until his escape to his room, a haven of dog-eared paperbacks and abandoned projects. While sweeping near the magazine rack, a vibrant flyer snagged his attention. Adrenaline Rush Paintball, Unleash Your Inner Warrior, it screamed above a photograph of a player diving for cover, awash in neon splatters. Leo typically dismissed such things as childish and frankly, a mess. But today, the image struck a chord, a quiet yearning for something beyond reheated meals and sitcom reruns. He picked it up, the slick paper cool against his damp hand. Oakhaven Paintball Arena, weekends only. Beginners welcome. A web address sat at the bottom. He carefully tucked the flyer into his pocket. Later, back in his room, the flyer sat on his desk, a subtle challenge. He typed the address into his laptop. The site was surprisingly polished, showcasing themed fields, strict safety guidelines, and glowing customer reviews. The ultimate thrill, one raved. A fantastic way to de-stress, another claimed. Leo browsed the photos, his pulse quickening. He'd never so much as touched a paintball marker, much less participated in a simulated skirmish. The idea felt daunting. And utterly liberating. He clicked Book Now. A calendar appeared, displaying availability for the coming weekend. He hesitated, his cursor poised over Saturday. What if he proved inept? What if he embarrassed himself? He pictured Mrs. Henderson's disapproving frown, his mother's well-meaning nudges about his future, the barely veiled pity in his friend's eyes. He was perpetually the quiet one, the observer, fading into the scenery. Then, a jolt of defiance. He clicked the Saturday afternoon slot. A confirmation page materialized, requesting payment details. He completed the form, his fingers betraying a slight tremor. Booking confirmed. Prepare for an adrenaline surge, the screen announced. Leo leaned back, a hesitant smile forming. He was flying blind. But for the first time in ages, a spark of genuine excitement flickered within him. The summer doldrums, perhaps, were about to receive a vibrant interruption. Unexpected encounter. The gravel crunched under Leo's sneakers as he approached the registration desk at Paint Apocalypse. The name alone made his palms sweat. He clutched the crumpled waiver form, the ink slightly smudged from his nervous grip. A cacophony of shouts and the staccato bursts of compressed air echoed from the wooded area beyond, doing little to soothe his anxiety. He felt ridiculously unprepared. His usual Saturday involved reading obscure sci-fi novels, not dodging projectiles filled with brightly colored goo. He handed over the form to a bored-looking teenager with neon green hair and a nose ring the size of a bottle cap. After a cursory glance, she tossed it onto a growing pile and pointed towards a table laden with protective gear. Suit up, newbie. Game's about to start. Leo fumbled with the ill-fitting jumpsuit, pulling it over his t-shirt. He felt like an oversized toddler dressed for a snow day. The mask was worse, fogging up instantly and smelling faintly of stale plastic and something vaguely floral. He adjusted it awkwardly, nearly knocking over a stack of paint canisters. He was seriously regretting signing up for this. That's when he saw her. Across the bustling staging area, leaning against a weathered wooden barricade, stood Sarah. His Sarah. His neighbor Sarah. But not the Sarah he knew from polite hallway greetings and brief chats about the weather. This Sarah was different. She was clad in a similar jumpsuit, but somehow managed to make it look effortlessly cool. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, a few strands escaping to frame her face. The sunlight glinted off her high cheekbones as she laughed, talking animatedly with a group of people. She held a paintball gun casually, like she'd been born with it in her hand. Leo's jaw went slack. He hadn't pictured her as someone who enjoyed this. He usually saw her in yoga pants and a cardigan, carrying grocery bags. This was Sarah unleashed, a warrior princess ready for battle. He swallowed hard, suddenly acutely aware of his own awkwardness. Should he say something? Pretend he didn't see her? Maybe just slowly back away and hope she didn't notice him. Too late. Her gaze swept across the area and locked onto his. A slow smile spread across her face, and she pushed herself off the barricade, heading straight for him. He froze, feeling like a deer caught in headlights. "Leo?" she asked, her voice carrying easily over the din. He managed a weak smile. "Sarah. Hi. I didn't expect to see you here." "Brilliant, Leo. Absolutely brilliant." She chuckled, a warm, throaty sound that sent a surprising shiver down his spine. "Me neither, actually. I signed up on a whim. Thought I'd try something new." She raised an eyebrow. "You too?" He nodded, feeling a blush creep up his neck. "Yeah. Something like that." "First time?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. He winced. "Afraid so." "You." "Guilty as charged," she admitted, her smile widening. "So, we're both clueless rookies then." He let out a nervous laugh. "Looks that way." A whistle blew, a shrill, piercing sound that cut through the air. "All right, everyone. Game on," the teenager with the green hair yelled. "Blue team on the left, red team on the right. Move it, people." Sarah looked at Leo, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Well, Leo Maxwell," she said, extending her hand. "Looks like we're in this together. What do you say we stick together? Misery loves company, right?" He took her hand, her grip surprisingly firm. "Misery definitely loves company," he agreed, a genuine smile finally breaking through his nervousness. "But. Paintball 101. Blue team, you're with me." A stern-looking woman with a whistle around her neck barked, pointing towards a huddle of blue vests. Leo shuffled forward, feeling a familiar wave of anxiety wash over him. Team sports weren't exactly his forte. He spotted Sarah already heading in that direction, a playful grin on her face. A wave of relief, subtle but definitely there, eased some of the tension in his shoulders. At least he wouldn't be completely alone. "All right, rookies, listen up," the woman continued, her voice cutting through the general chatter. "Paintball 101. Safety goggles on at all times. Barrel socks on when you're not on the field. No blind firing. And for the love of Pete, don't take your mask off unless you're in the designated safe zone." Sarah nudged Leo with her elbow. "Think you can handle that, Maxwell?" she teased, her eyes sparkling. He feigned offense. "I'll have you know I'm a master of not taking my mask off." She laughed, a bright, melodic sound that drew a few curious glances. "That's a start. Now, watch this." She grabbed a paintball gun, its weight surprisingly substantial, and demonstrated a proper stance, feet shoulder-width apart, slight bend in the knees, gun held firmly but not rigidly. She then showed him how to aim, sighting down the barrel, and how to adjust the CO2 canister. Leo watched, impressed by her apparent expertise. Where had she learned all this? "Okay, your turn," Sarah said, handing him the gun. It felt awkward and heavy in his hands. He fumbled with the trigger guard. "Relax," she said, gently adjusting his grip. "Pretend you're holding a very aggressive baguette." He chuckled, the image surprisingly helpful. He finally managed to get into a somewhat stable stance. "Now, aim at that target," Sarah instructed, pointing to a battered plywood cutout of a bandit about 20 yards away. Leo squinted, trying to focus. He took a deep breath and squeezed the trigger. The gun recoiled with a surprising jolt and the paintball sailed wildly off course, splattering against a nearby tree. Sarah burst out laughing. A little high and to the left, eh? Don't worry, happens to the best of us. Try again, but this time, focus on your breathing and keep your wrist steady. He adjusted his stance, took another breath, and aimed again. This time, the paintball came closer, hitting the bandit in the leg. Better. Sarah cheered. See? You're a natural. Just think of it as extreme tag. Only with paint. They spent the next few minutes taking turns shooting at the target, laughing as their shots gradually improved. Sarah's guidance was surprisingly effective, and Leo found himself actually enjoying the experience. He even managed to hit the bandit in the head a couple of times, eliciting a whoop of delight from Sarah. The competitive spirit was definitely kicking in. He glanced at her, her blonde hair catching the sunlight, her eyes alight with excitement. He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Maybe this whole paintball thing wouldn't be so bad after all. First blood and budding admiration. The shrill whistle blasted, slicing through the nervous chatter. Adrenaline surged, a cold jolt that snapped Leo into sharp focus. He crouched low behind a stack of tires, the weight of the paintball gun suddenly feeling significant. This was it. First blood. Sarah, beside him, grinned, her eyes bright with a barely concealed excitement. Ready to rumble, Maxwell, she whispered, already peeling away from the meager cover. Stick close and watch my back. We're flanking left. Leo hesitated, his mind still processing the sheer absurdity of the situation. He, Leo Maxwell, accountant in training, was about to engage in a mock battle with a woman who looked like she'd been born on a battlefield. He shook off the thought and followed, his heart hammering against his ribs. The woods were a blur of green and brown, punctuated by the sharp cracks of paintball guns. Sarah moved with a surprising agility, weaving between trees, her blonde ponytail whipping behind her. She barked orders, concise and effective, guiding their small group towards the enemy flag. Leo, still awkward and self-conscious, stumbled occasionally, but Sarah always seemed to be there, a steadying hand on his arm, a quick word of encouragement. He saw her take down two opponents in quick succession, a fluid motion of aiming and firing. There was a ruthless efficiency in her movements, but also a playful glint in her eyes as she dodged a spray of paint. It was a captivating combination. He realized, with a start, that he wasn't just impressed by her skill, he was attracted. A paintball whizzed past his ear, snapping him back to reality. Heads up, Leo! Sarah yelled, already moving forward. He scrambled to catch up, his initial fear slowly giving way to a strange sense of exhilaration. He fired blindly, hoping to provide some cover for Sarah, and actually managed to hit someone. A triumphant shout echoed from the opposing team, followed by a string of colorful expletives. Sarah laughed, a full-throated sound that cut through the noise of the game. Nice shot, Maxwell. You're a natural. The warmth of her praise, coupled with the shared adrenaline, sent a jolt through him. He grinned, feeling a confidence he hadn't known he possessed. Maybe he wasn't entirely useless after all. Maybe, just maybe, he could actually do this. He followed Sarah deeper into the woods, the sounds of battle fading into a symphony of newfound excitement and a budding, undeniable admiration. Between battles. The whistle shrieked, cutting through the lingering echoes of paintballs splattering. Leo ripped off his mask, gasping for air. He could taste the metallic tang of adrenaline, a strange but not unpleasant flavor. Sarah was already striding towards the picnic tables under the shade of a sprawling oak, her blonde ponytail bouncing. Well, Maxwell, she called, a grin splitting her face, you're a surprisingly decent shot. Didn't peg you for a paintball prodigy. He managed a weak smile, his legs still shaky. Beginner's luck. Besides, you were a good teacher, Jenkins. She laughed, a warm, throaty sound. Flattery will get you everywhere. Speaking of which, I brought reinforcements. She gestured to a cooler overflowing with ice and a basket laden with snacks. Replenish your energy. We've got at least 2 more rounds of mayhem to unleash. Leo gratefully accepted a bottle of chilled lemonade, the sugary sweetness coating his parched throat. He watched as Sarah efficiently unpacked sandwiches, fruit, and a bag of homemade cookies. This is unexpected, he admitted, taking a bite of a surprisingly gourmet-looking turkey and avocado sandwich. I was picturing lukewarm soda and gas station chips. Please, Sarah scoffed playfully, handing him a napkin. I have standards. Even on the battlefield. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the chirping of crickets and the distant shouts from another group on the adjacent field. Then, Leo, feeling bolder, asked, So, what do you do when you're not orchestrating paintball wars? Sarah considered this, popping a grape into her mouth. I'm a landscape architect. I mostly design public spaces, parks, that sort of thing. Try to make the world a little greener, a little more livable. That's really cool, Leo said, genuinely impressed. I'm just an accountant in training. Numbers and spreadsheets. Not exactly saving the planet. Hey, somebody's gotta keep track of the money so people like me can plant trees, she countered, winking. Besides, I bet you're good with puzzles, right? Logical thinking. He shrugged. I guess. I like strategy games. And movies, actually. Especially old sci-fi. Anything with spaceships and laser beams. Sarah's eyes lit up. No way. Me too. Have you seen Silent Running? They launched into a rapid-fire discussion of Douglas Trumbull's special effects, philosophical subtexts, and the tragic fate of the film's botanical domes. Leo found himself talking more freely than he ever had before, surprised by how easily their conversation flowed. We should have a movie night sometime, Sarah suggested, gathering the empty sandwich wrappers. I've got a projector and a decent screen. We could even make it a double feature. I'd like that, Leo said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. He hesitated, then added, I also like hiking. There's a great trail up near Eagle Rock. You ever been? Sarah grinned. Funny you should mention that. I practically live on that trail. I know all the secret viewpoints. She leaned closer, her voice dropping conspiratorially. Maybe I'll show you one. If you promise not to tell anyone else. The whistle blew again, a shrill reminder of the game waiting for them. Sarah stood up, stretching. All right, Maxwell. Time to get back in the trenches. Ready for round 2? Leo stood as well, feeling a newfound energy coursing through him. It wasn't just the lemonade and the sandwich. It was something else, a spark of anticipation, a burgeoning connection. Ready as I'll ever be, Jenkins, he said, grabbing his mask. But. Under fire. The second game detonated. No cautious feelers this time. The opposing squad, ominous in their dark jumpsuits, sprinted toward their stronghold, unleashing a torrent of paint. Heads up. Sarah's shout cut through the din as she hauled Leo behind a tire barricade. The air vibrated with the thwack of paint against metal and cries of elimination. Leo felt his pulse surge. This was a different beast altogether. He dared a glance over the tires, spotting a black-clad figure advancing, marker brandished. Gotta move, he rasped, barely audible. A feral grin stretched across Sarah's face. Finally. Cover me. She burst from cover, spitting a quick volley that sent the attacker scrambling. With surprising agility, she darted towards a ramshackle shed at the field's edge. Adrenaline surging, Leo followed, sliding in beside her. The shed reeked of mildew and rot. Right, he said, struggling to regain his breath. Plan. Sarah gestured to a shadowed trail snaking through the adjacent woods. Flank M. They're all eyes front. We circle around and sow some discord. Leo hesitated. The woods seemed to exude an unsettling gloom. But the memory of Sarah's audacious smile propelled him forward. Let's do it. They navigated the undergrowth with swift, silent steps, the earth cushioning their advance. The scent of pine needles and damp earth hung heavy. The sounds of combat echoed faintly, shouts, the rapid-fire chatter of markers, the wet smack of impact. Near the wood's edge, Sarah halted, hand raised. 2 sentries, she breathed, indicating a pair of figures in black guarding their perimeter. We neutralized them, quick and quiet. Leo nodded, mouth suddenly parched. Sarah took point, exhibiting a surprising capacity for stealth. She stalked behind one guard, raised her marker, and fired a single, decisive shot. The guard cried out, clutching his shoulder, out of the game. The second guard spun around, startled. Leo reacted instantly, firing and catching him square in the torso. Clean shot, Leo. Sarah cheered, clapping him on the back. Time to wreak some havoc. Emerging from the trees behind the enemy formation, they opened fire on the unsuspecting players. Bedlam erupted. The black jumpsuits scattered like startled crows, confusion reigning. A jolt of exhilaration shot through Leo, a raw, untamed thrill. This wasn't balancing spreadsheets. This was electric. A paintball buzzed past his ear, close enough to feel the displacement of air. He dove behind a boulder, heart hammering a frantic rhythm. Peeking out, he saw a player in black, features obscured by a mask, locking aim on him. Leo squeezed the trigger, but the shot went wide. Leo, down. Sarah's voice cracked. A heartbeat later, a paintball slammed into the rock inches from his head, showering him with a spray of pigment. He recoiled, feeling a sharp sting on his cheek. Sarah reappeared from behind a tree, unleashing a continuous stream of paint at their assailant, forcing him back into cover. "You good?" she called. "Yeah, just a bit of color added to my complexion," Leo replied, wiping his face. Sarah grinned, teeth flashing. "That's the spirit. Let's wrap this up." A painful shield. The world exploded in a wet, stinging slap against Sarah's cheek. A yell died in her throat, replaced by a sharp intake of breath. For a disorienting second, the forest swam, green and brown blurring at the edges. Paint, thick and viscous, dripped from her face, obscuring her vision. She stumbled, one hand flying up to her throbbing cheekbone. Before she could fully register what had happened, a solid form slammed into her, knocking her further off balance. Leo. He'd moved with a speed she wouldn't have thought him capable of, planting himself squarely between her and the direction the shot had come from. Another thwack, this one a duller, heavier sound, followed by a grunt. Leo flinched, clutching his upper arm. The air filled with the sickly sweet smell of ruptured paint. Red bloomed across the sleeve of his borrowed camouflage jacket. "Leo. Are you okay?" Sarah pushed past him, her own head still reeling, the taste of paint acrid on her tongue. She gripped his uninjured arm, concern etching lines around her eyes. The playful glint that usually sparkled there was gone, replaced by genuine worry. He winced, flexing his fingers. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just surprised. Stings like hell, though." He peeled back the fabric gingerly. The welt rising beneath the torn material was already an angry purple. "Let me see." Sarah gently pulled his sleeve further up, her touch surprisingly firm. "That looks nasty. We need to clean that." She scanned the surrounding woods, her eyes narrowed, assessing the threat. "Okay, stay here. I'm going to flush them out." The protective instinct, usually reserved for her younger siblings, flared. This time, though, it felt different. It felt fiercer. Leo stared at her, his own shock slowly morphing into a strange mixture of awe and embarrassment. Sarah, wait. You don't have to. She ignored him, already crouching low, her paintball gun held at the ready. Cover me, she instructed, her voice low and steely. The change in her demeanor was startling. Gone was the teasing, playful Sarah, in her place stood someone focused, determined, and surprisingly intimidating. He watched her disappear behind a thick cluster of ferns, his heart hammering against his ribs. The sting in his arm was a dull throb compared to the rush of adrenaline coursing through him. He hadn't thought, he'd just reacted. Protecting her had been instinctive. And now, watching her move with such confidence and skill, a new kind of admiration bloomed within him. He gripped his own gun tighter, his earlier trepidation replaced by a surge of protectiveness. He wouldn't let anything happen to her. Not if he could help it. He might not be a natural at paintball, but he could certainly watch her back. He shifted his weight, scanning the trees, his senses on high alert. He heard a rustling in the undergrowth to his left and tensed, ready to fire. This time, he wouldn't hesitate. Sarah was counting on him. And he wouldn't let her down. Victory and flirtation. The air crackled. Not with electricity, but with the sting of paintballs whizzing past. Leo ducked behind a deflated tire, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Across the makeshift battlefield, he saw Sarah, a smudge of green paint smeared across her cheek, crouched low near a dilapidated shed. She caught his eye and gestured emphatically toward the opposing team's flag, a tattered piece of blue fabric flapping mockingly in the breeze. Cover me, she yelled, her voice barely audible above the cacophony of paintball fire. Leo swallowed hard. Cover her. He was more likely to be covered. But the determined glint in her eye, the sheer audacity of her plan, sparked something within him. He scrambled to a new position, popping up to unleash a barrage of paintballs toward the group guarding the flag. They returned fire, forcing him back down behind the tire. He risked another peek. Sarah was moving, fast and low, weaving through the obstacles like a seasoned commando. Now, Leo, she shouted, her voice closer this time. He understood. It was a diversion. While the opposing team focused on him, she would make her move. He plastered himself against the tire and fired blindly, hoping to keep their attention. He heard a yell, followed by a triumphant whoop. I got it. Sarah's voice rang out. She was sprinting back, the blue flag clutched tightly in her hand, two defenders hot on her heels. They were gaining. Acting on pure instinct, Leo abandoned his cover and charged forward, intercepting the pursuers. He fired a quick burst, splattering them with neon yellow paint. They swore and retreated, defeated. Sarah reached him, breathless and grinning. You actually did it, Leo. She punched him lightly on the arm. You were amazing. He felt a flush creep up his neck. Amazing? Him. He usually spent his weekends balancing spreadsheets, not dodging paintballs. Just, doing my part, he stammered, acutely aware of how close she was standing. He could smell the faint scent of sunscreen and something else, something uniquely Sarah. The rest of their team swarmed them, a cacophony of cheers and high fives. They had won. Later, as the adrenaline subsided and the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, they sat together on a rickety bench, sharing a lukewarm bottle of water. So, Sarah said, a playful glint in her eyes, turns out the accountant has a wild side after all. Only when properly motivated, Leo replied, emboldened by their victory and the lingering thrill of the game. Motivated by what, exactly, she teased, leaning closer. He hesitated, the familiar fear of saying the wrong thing creeping in. But then he looked into her eyes, those bright, intelligent eyes that had challenged him, inspired him, and made him feel more alive than he had in years. By the prospect of winning, he said, his voice barely a whisper. He quickly added, and maybe by playing on the same team as a very skilled strategist. Sarah laughed, a warm, melodic sound that sent a shiver down his spine. Flattery will get you everywhere, Leo Maxwell. She bumped her shoulder against his. So, strategist, what's our next move? Ice cream and new beginnings. The last splatters of paint were meticulously wiped from their masks. I clearly carried us, Maxwell, Sarah announced, tossing her cleaning cloth onto the designated bin with a flourish. Leo chuckled, carefully dismantling his paintball gun. Carried? I distinctly remember flanking the entire red team while you were strategically positioned behind that conveniently placed inflatable tire. Strategic is one word for it. I prefer bait. Sarah winked, her blonde hair catching the afternoon sun streaming through the open bay doors of the venue. Besides, someone had to provide moral support. You looked like you were about to hyperventilate back there. He feigned offense. Hyperventilate? I was simply conserving energy for the triumphant victory dance I was about to perform. He tossed his own cloth, hitting the bin dead center. A small victory. A genuine smile softened Sarah's features. All right, we'll call it a draw. Partners in paintball triumph. She extended her hand, and Leo shook it, a jolt of unexpected electricity running up his arm. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken possibilities. Leo cleared his throat. So, all this talk about victory makes me want ice cream. You know, celebratory sustenance. Would you, maybe want to get some? The question came out in a rush, a tangled mess of words he immediately regretted. Sarah's smile widened, reaching her eyes. Ice cream? After such a grueling battle? Leo, I'm shocked you even had to ask. Let's go. The ice cream parlor buzzed with the late afternoon crowd. They settled at a small table near the window, each with a double scoop of something ridiculously decadent. Leo, emboldened by the sugar rush, found himself talking more freely than he ever had before. He told her about his accounting studies, his anxieties about the upcoming exams, his secret desire to open a small bookstore someday. Sarah listened intently, occasionally interjecting with insightful questions or witty comments. She spoke of her work as a landscape architect, her passion for sustainable design, and her dream of transforming urban spaces into green oases. He learned about her love for hiking, her volunteer work at the local animal shelter, and her surprising talent for playing the ukulele. He noticed the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her passions, the way she tilted her head when she was really listening, the way a stray curl always seemed to fall across her forehead, begging to be brushed away. You know, Sarah said, swirling the melting remains of her strawberry cheesecake ice cream, for someone who claims to be an accountant, you're surprisingly adventurous. Leo laughed. And you're surprisingly down-to-earth for someone who designs gardens for a living. The air crackled with a comfortable ease, a shared understanding that transcended their age difference. He felt a connection, a pull that was both exhilarating and terrifying. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that this was just the beginning. The start of something new. Something exciting. Something, potentially life-altering. The summer stretched before them, a blank canvas filled with the promise of ice cream, laughter, and maybe, just maybe, something more.